General Protocol Spaces, banking on freedom.
Welcome to General Bull 44 of N. Are we getting what we dreamt about? This is a great title from imaginary username here, who is always thinking at a high level, at all levels, about things low level and also high level. But yeah, this does seem like a good time to talk about it. There's a lot going on in the world. And are we actually getting what we dreamt about? The people who have really been working on Bitcoin for a long time to achieve something, right? To like actually make a difference. And let's have a talk about it. And I'm actually going to open it up in a minute after we have a quick chat to Uname to open up the topic. But there's Jomar. Jomar, can I get a mic check from you?
Hello,
Hey,
Matcha. Yeah, good.
hear you clear. Yeah. So quick intros before we get started. Jomar, could you give us just a very quick introduction about you and Peitaka and yeah, just keep it quick and then we'll get into the main topic right after that.
All right. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Jomar. I'm the founder and CEO of Paytaka. And Paytaka is, we'd like to call ourselves super app, wallet super app. So basically, we do anything that's needed to spread the use of Bitcoin Cash, make it accessible to everyone.
Awesome. And Ramit, could you give us a quick intro as well for the listeners?
Sure. Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me here. So, my name is Romit. I'm based out of Bangalore, India. I've been in the Bitcoin space since 2013. I founded Zapit. It's a cryptocurrency wallet. I initially started off with BCH wallet, but now we have multiple assets involved. And yeah, we run P2P exchange within the wallet, and lately been focusing on Web3 gaming.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, the games have been fun. I've played those. Um, and Jim, could you give us just a quick intro about yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Jim. I worked on a few different projects. Most of my work's just kind of bits and pieces around the place for the most part. Um, at the moment, I do a lot of contract work for General Protocols.
BCH is well blessed to have Jim working on our stuff and also other things that are not from GP as well. So really happy to have you. Thank you, Jim. You name. Could you let people know who this QR code is?
I work in the GP's basement room with no windows, and I write and tweak algorithms, and also do a bunch of other things at BCHN and stuff. I also sometimes help the cat moderate channels. So
Nice, nice. Yes. So yes, and with that, let's get into it. So, are we getting what we dreamt about? What were you thinking when you came up with that title? You name.
yeah. So I mean, it's been a long freaking time, and especially for me personally, because although I heard about Bitcoin in 2013, I really only started become active in uh, 2014 after I keep telling people the story about how I started off the bat buying and selling coins, literally on the sidewalk. Um, and then before you know it, I look around and I was like, holy crap, it's been 10 years. Um, and a lot of things have changed since then. And it's not just, people like, oh, I'm in it for the tech, so the tech has changed. Yes, the tech has changed somehow a bit. Um, there is also a lot more coins going on. But the larger landscape of Bitcoin itself, whatever flavor you're on, both BTC, BCH, and if you like, maybe perhaps other minor flavors. And also, the quote unquote industry has changed a lot, and the people involved in the whole thing has changed a lot. And I couldn't help but look at, okay, what was I hoping back then? Like all those years ago. Did we get anywhere right now, or did we get, is it better? Is it worse? Yeah. So this was the motivation.
I kind of want to do like a round of questions here. Like if I was doing this in person, I would be like, everybody write it down before anybody says anything. Because once somebody says something, it like influences how you present things. But could we do that real quick? Like for each of you, if you have like any goals that you think are pretty important, like at some point those goals appeared. Um, was it like just to get rich and that was it? Or was there more to it? Or like what was the earliest kind of goal? Like maybe get rich is one, but then like anything that was not get rich. Like what's the earliest goal you can remember you had related to Bitcoin? I don't know. Does anybody want to go first?
Since I laid out,
Yeah, yeah.
all the foundation, I'll just finish it
Go
off
for
by
it.
saying, like it in the beginning, I was like, oh, sure, there is this money and nobody controls it. That sounds really cool. I even tried mining it for a while. It eventually became uneconomical. I was able to get free power for a bit. That was not sustainable. But anyway, um, I was really intrigued by the idea that anyone would be able to use this thing to just buy and sell anything with anyone else anywhere in the world, and nobody can stop them. That was the idea, and that was not really the case back then because there was a lot of barriers to that. Like, yeah, the coin is not very liquid. It's a pain in the ass, and people don't really want to accept it. And people especially don't really want to use it as a unit of account. So there's blah blah blah. A lot of the drawbacks wouldn't really become apparent until much later on. But basically, anyone would be free to do anything with it, uh, in anything. Was the dream back then. Yeah, that's for me.
I'm similar, and I actually wrote it down before you named answers as well, so I wasn't uh, just copying. But yeah, no, like I wrote down sensor resistance, and that was probably what drew me to it initially. Um, uh, like once I actually read into it and worked out how it worked economically as well, I thought that was really, really brilliant. But yeah, first and foremost is probably the fact that it is sensor resistant. You can send money to anyone, anywhere, and that was really, really appealing for me.
See, mine is less idealistic than you guys. Mine was so one of my favorite things in life is when I have a strong opinion and I think I understand something and then somebody shows me that I didn't understand it. I like really I love that. When you feel like you've found something new, like a really new understanding. And it was when I broke my understanding of like the Blade Runner, like cred stick, the sci-fi idea of like a cred stick that has money on it. I was like, that's the dumbest thing ever. That's, you just copy it. Right? You just copy it. That's stupid. That would never work. And I always thought that was dumb, like in every story and movie and book that I had consumed. And then as soon as I read the white paper, I was like, oh, oh, you could actually do that. So I guess it wasn't really like a goal, but just that understanding that, oh, this thing is actually possible where you can have digital money, and that's really cool. Right? Because this is like, it was a long time ago. But anyway, yeah, that was it for me. But the first goal I had, I think, was because when I understood it, I thought, oh, this is going to be amazing and it's just going to work and it's going to get adopted automatically, right? And then because that was back in like 2013, 14, and then as I watched things fall apart as they led up to like 2017 and the BTC BCH split, I started to see things fall apart, and I was like, what is this? This was supposed to be amazing and to work, and what's going on here? As I watched it get hijacked. And that's when the first kind of goals appeared where I was like, wait, no, we're going to have to make this happen. It's not going to happen by accident. And it's going to have to be an intentional thing. And then started to have, yeah, okay, let's actually make it real, make it that future where you have digital money. So that was the start for me. Nothing fancy economics. None of that was sci-fi. Jomar, did you have any first goals that you remember that?
Yeah, when I first read the white paper, that was back in 2013. Um, what really excited me the most was the permissionless aspect of Bitcoin. That finally we have a digital currency and payment system that any developer could use to build any system that involves payments. So you don't have to ask permissions from banks or from anyone if you want to incorporate payments in your application. So that was really that sparked a lot of ideas when I first read and understood it, and the fact that it's global. So it opens up like a global market for any application out there that will involve payments. So that was the most exciting part, and I think that has remained largely still a dream until now. Although we have made, I would say, lots of progress, both the Bitcoin years and now Bitcoin Cash. But it remains largely a dream. So yes, we can use Bitcoin Cash permissionlessly. You can put it in your application, integrate it. But the question now is like the size of the market that's going to use your application. So it's one thing to be able to use Bitcoin Cash for like developing systems, but the other thing is there really there's a demand? Is there a demand for it? Is it is there really a market out there? So I guess um, much of the technical side of it, I'm very happy about the technical developments that I see, especially in the last few years. That Bitcoin Cash has become a more complete electronic cash system, like really a complete system for peer-to-peer electronic cash. We are now more ready to like tackle the other aspects to make that big dream happen, you know. So the question, are we getting what we dreamt about? Partly, yes, but most of it remains a dream, and it's a challenge for all of us to make the rest of it happen.
Right. Okay, so you still kind of have the same dream that you started with. The goals and what you wanted to accomplish is similar to what you started with like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I actually started using Bitcoin for like simple projects that time, back in 2013, but more of like toy projects. I didn't have much time back then to tackle on more serious projects. Now, yes, and I'm in a better position to execute like many of those ideas I had before.
Nice. Okay. So going from just dream to actually achieving things. Um, Ramit, did you ever have like goals or something that popped up and you thought, I really want to achieve that. I really want this to happen? Or yeah, like what was your kind of early motivation?
Yeah,
The
I mean,
earliest motivation you had?
when I got into the Bitcoin space back in 2013, it was still, in its very early stages. So I didn't know much. Like I was coming in from zero knowledge about finances or economics. That was just when I started picking up books and I started learning about these things. And I didn't even know that Bitcoin had a price. Like that's that's how I was looking at Bitcoin. I just thought of it as it's like a payment system that the existing financial system would work on top of. That's how I initially started. But then the more I learned about it, the more I kind of understood that okay, so it's a completely different financial system itself. So for me, it was all about self sovereignty and using the money in the way you see fit. Because that was the same time that I started facing difficulties with my bank with respect to payments getting blocked and things like that. So I clearly saw the benefit of using Bitcoin for what it was meant to be used for. But no, it was not for getting rich and things like that. That only came later on. That only came later on that, you can actually use Bitcoin to build businesses on top of that. And then you can actually provide value by making Bitcoin more accessible to others because clearly there was a void there. Um, Most of the people that were just focused on building things like exchanges, which are great. Of course, it's required to get in and out of it, but not many payment systems were being built. So my initial goal, well, I wouldn't say initial because these ideas came like 3 or 4 years the initial learning about Bitcoin. But I would still consider those my initial goals was to spread knowledge of what it's supposed to be used for, how it's supposed to be used, and to actually build tools to enable that. So I would say that's how I was looking at it. In the early days, I thought that just looking at it from just skimming the information, I thought it's clearly going to take 20 to 30 years for this technology to pick up because it's quite hard to understand and it's also adversarial to the current existing financial system. So usually, things like this kind of takes time to um, take precedence. I guess in terms of adoption, we are still on that timeline. When I say, I mean it in terms of payments, of course. The payments are still pretty much lagging. Everything else is growing pretty fast, other than payments, which is rather funny because that is what it's supposed to be meant for. But other than payments, everything else is picking up in the Bitcoin space.
Linux on the
Um,
desktop.
so
That's my
so yeah, I mean, I would say my initial goal is still my current goal. To enable uh, Bitcoin payments around the world, and to it's not just educating, but it's also to build the tools and to get people to start using it. So I would say my goals haven't really changed much.
nice. The one thing you mentioned about the banks, that was one of the first experiences I had where I don't know, I call it like running into the walls, where you realize you're in a box. I don't know. I think there's some of us who react very strongly to that, to feeling like we're boxed in, and there's other people who just don't care. Like, I remember that the first time the bank told me like, "Why do you want to take this money out of your bank?" And I was like, "Did you just ask me why I want to take the money out? Are you serious?" And
A,
it just kind of
a lot of
totally
people.
floored me, and I think maybe a lot of people don't care, but uh, that was kind of like a first yellow flag of what's to come, right? For me, I was like, wait, that's not right. Why are you asking me that? You shouldn't, that doesn't make sense. And, and of course it only got worse from there. But yeah, that was one of the triggers for me that made me realize, oh, okay, this is actually important and not just sci-fi
Uh,
fun stuff.
yeah, and a lot of people have been gradually conditioned into accepting this. Yeah, what are you talking about? It has always been like that, right? Well, um, it has not always been like that. It got progressively worse over, the past 2 decades or so. Uh, it's not, it's not normal. It's not normal, and and I suspect that prior to 9/11 and so on, even before that, part of it was because technology was simply not set up to do all the surveillance and shit. And part of it was that the cost of doing all this was prohibitive. You can't really do all the Orwellian shit these days. Back then, without without really getting into stopping commercial activity, businesses, and daily lives and stuff. Well, it's possible to do it these days, and that's what they did. So kind of a if they can, they will kind of thing. And yeah, so it got worse. And I'm not sure if, at least for the industry as a whole. In BCH, you guys have set up P2P markets, and I really appreciate that. That we are at least trying really hard to keep uh, all that freedom to transact alive. But for the industry as a whole, I'm not sure we got anywhere in terms of addressing that. While the fiat world has just gotten worse and worse. Um, but in crypto, most people these days,
Better technically, but worse and worse, right? Yeah.
well,
Like more
what do you mean?
competitive technically, as in like faster, cheaper, like the whole system in India is a great example. They caught up with what the technical benefits were, right? But like much worse in terms of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
surveillance and authoritarianism and so forth.
yes. So
Yeah.
as things have gotten more convenient, um, most of the time, they got a lot worse in terms of freedom. And I would say in places that just adopted the new technologies, they will probably be enjoying the new and modern feel too much to realize how bad the drawbacks are once the government starts to crack down on you. And well, I mean, I have never lived in India, so I can't really comment to the specific case of India. So
I think this
It's the same thing,
conditioning.
right? The technology has gotten better, but surveillance and authoritarianism has gotten worse. Like control systems have gotten worse. Is that the same for you guys, where you live in Philippines and India?
In at least from our experience, like talking to a lot of people, right, they are so much conditioned that digital currency is something that's like almost like yielding to the control of the government. Like they're even surprised that we don't need like personal information when you need to download the wallet, and it's it's almost like a negative when people see that, like, oh, why don't you require like personal info? Why don't you require mobile number?
Oh no.
It's like you see the level of conditioning in the
Right.
minds of people. Like they got they get scared. They get more scared when we don't ask these things. So they become more comfortable when people like verify your ID. It's like people expect that when you deal with money, digital money, that you have to be automatically subjected to these kinds of violations of privacy. They don't see it like that. Yeah, it's funny how people have been conditioned really to that level.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely increased in terms of surveillance. But to be honest, with the new UPI system, I haven't seen much of authoritarian actions that's taken place. You know what I mean? Yes, every single transaction is monitored. They can kind of see who is sending it to whom and things like that. But since everyone is already KYC'd, as the UPI system is kind of pegged to the banks, most of the people don't really face any issues on a day-to-day basis. So I don't know how to see that. If you are looking to have privacy, then yes, of course, it's a bad system. But most of the people actually don't care. Like Joma said, yes, it's the same mentality in India as well. People actually like KYC here. I hate it, right? But people like KYC. They see that as a trust factor. Oh, okay, you're collecting my information and submitting it to the government. I trust you more now because yes, you're regulated and you have this certificate from or license from the that mindset is a little hard to beat. Right, like for the past 10, 12 years that I've been educating people about this space, it doesn't work because yeah, the conditioning is pretty strong. I think.
I mean, it's all. I mean, it's all fair. It's all fair and square that oh yeah, I like that you sound official and stuff until the government starts using the same system to tax you, right? Is there like anything like a value added tax or sales tax in India or something like that?
Yeah, we have a GST, goods and service tax, slightly on the higher
Right.
end, but yeah, so everyone complains about that. But the GST goes on the product, right? So whether you're yes, a lot of people do try to escape that by using cash because any other transaction you will still get caught. Any digital transaction you will get caught if you do not pay GST. But yeah, I mean, there are ways where they can kind of figure out. I mean, there's still small. The black economy is still pretty strong. A lot of these smaller shops they prefer if you paid in cash, or they just do not give you the bill. They just don't hand over the bill for the product, and that's kind of an understanding that people have that they don't pay the tax. But that's becoming more and more of a minority economy. Majority of the people are okay paying the tax these days because they see that as a added benefit. It's not just added tax, but it's also an added benefit. So it's harder to beat the system when more and more people are getting ready to comply.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I would imagine that. Well, it depends on the tax rate, actually, of course. But I would imagine that a lot of the shops would, beyond preference, they
Yeah, I
should
mean it's
actually give
quite
out
high.
give
Complaints about
out
it.
discounts, right? If
But
you pay in
everyone
cash.
complains about it for sure because I think it's on an average it's about 18%, which is quite high for a lot of products. But for luxury items and things like that, it can get pretty high. But yeah, there was a ridiculous argument in like a parliamentary session or something like that because popcorn is taxed two different ways in India. Like a salted popcorn and caramel popcorn have two different, and it was ridiculous because caramel popcorn is considered a luxury item where the other so things like that keep happening. Like people are always up and about with the government when it comes to taxes. They do not like high taxes, um, but they're okay with some level of taxing.
Right. And yeah, and another thing in India is that unlike in America, where every tax is listed separately and then added up at the end, you guys probably include all that tax in the price in the first place, right? Is that the case, or is that like added at the end?
I'm not. I don't think I quite got that. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So like for example, if something has an origin, if something's starting price is $5 and the
Mhm.
tax is $1, is it sold as something that's $5 and then when you pay you have to pay $6, or is it sold as $6, everything inclusive?
No, it's included. It's $6. So the tax is
Okay.
included in the price. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That probably explains why that probably explains a lot why people are not complaining as much.
Yeah, because they
But
only see the
that
end
speaks
price.
really
That's
to
all.
the psychology of people.
Yeah, that's true.
It just like got it just got more expensive for no reason. That's what a lot of people see.
Yeah.
Well, it's not only. I mean, the taxes are a big issue for everybody, right? It's a lot of money that gets handed over to the government in almost any case. But it's not only that, right? It's other things too. With like you were saying the permissionless nature and so forth of and then the point I said where it's like, why are you taking this money out? And the yellow flag there leads to the red flag, which is you can't take this money out. You can't do that. You can't transfer this money. You're not allowed to send it to that person because we don't know X or we don't know Y, or you're not allowed to buy this. You're not allowed that kind of thing, right? You guys have not faced that, or that's not like an issue that comes up where people feel like they're boxed in or they're being clamped down on. You were saying, Ramit, it's not really an issue. People day to day get by just fine. Um,
Can you give like an example of like
So I
yeah,
mean,
like when a bank literally says, or a government says, your money is frozen. You're not
oh
allowed to
yeah,
use that. Either the government
yeah,
says
the
or the
money
bank says
freezing
your
thing is a
money is
big
frozen.
problem.
It's not yours anymore. You can't have it,
Yes.
or you have
Yeah,
to
so the money
prove
does
this
get.
before you can have your money. That kind of thing.
Well, I am a prime example because one of my bank accounts is currently frozen because I was involved in a P2P transaction of crypto, right? So that was
currently,
a
damn.
a pretty big issue. If you actually go to, I think it's crypto r/crypto India Reddit, the entire Reddit is filled with people complaining about their bank accounts being frozen. It was a big issue, and the thing is, there was actually a conspiracy angle where the centralized exchanges, crypto exchanges of India, actually kind of got in bed with the police departments in order to purposely block everybody that were doing P2P transactions, because all the exchanges together, they put out a notice saying do not use P2P exchanges, use centralized exchanges, which is very funny to see that notice go out on LinkedIn and Twitter and all of that. I was like, you guys are colluding against your own users. Yeah, so that is definitely happening. And yeah, I mean, right now, currently, my bank account is frozen, and I have almost no way to get that unfrozen unless I put a lot of money into taking that to court. Which I mean, of course, I don't keep a lot of money in my bank account because of this reason. I keep majority of my funds in crypto. So actually, my legal case, like the amount that I would have to put out for the legal case, would be more than the amount that's there in the bank account. So I'm totally okay with not leaving that as is, right? But a lot of people have actually gotten frozen hundreds of thousands of dollars as well, which they had no other choice but to get a lawyer and get it fixed. But yeah, it's a long process. So yes, that definitely does happen. But most of the time, it doesn't happen to products and services. The government does not prevent you from buying or selling any service, except if it is the crypto side of things. Other than that,
Well,
no.
there's also the extreme cases, right? Where like in Greece, I guess Greece has kind of fallen out of recent memory, but where all the depositors just suddenly get a haircut, and the government says, "Hey, sorry, we're just going to take 50% of your bank accounts, everyone. So we're all even, so it's all good, right?" So it's
Well, I
like,
mean, the
okay.
Indian economy is still growing, so they're probably like 10 to 20 years away from that.
Right, yeah. When the going gets rough, and then government just decides to wipe out part of your money, or yeah, of course. I mean, that gets into the whole issues with fiat and inflation and so forth. But yeah, Jomar, did you guys have that? Do you guys have those other issues, like not just the tax issues, but the kind of freedom and control and uh, those type?
Yeah, I had the same experience as Romit actually. My one of my bank accounts was frozen, but luckily in my case they allowed me to withdraw the funds. Like after some time, after explaining um, that I have some crypto holdings and I sold it to. It was even I was even using Binance P2P. And in the early days, I think until now, Binance hasn't secured a license in the Philippines. So there was a crackdown of Binance users. So I happen to be one of those victims. But these are cases of people who use crypto, and so they have difficulties because of these limits set by the banks. But about the non-crypto users, like the ordinary people that use banks, um, in my circles, I've had uh, some friends who had problems with their accounts being hacked, and some withdrawals, unauthorized withdrawals in their bank accounts, and it takes a lot of time for the banks to resolve such cases, and because most are just small amounts, they just forget about it. So, and there was a time like there were many such cases happening, and we actually took that as an opportunity to like spread in social media that if you use crypto, like if you use Bitcoin Cash and Paytaka, no such thing will happen. So we took advantage of that. But yeah, the aspect about tax, this is one thing that merchants that we onboard always, like almost always note, like, oh, this is good for like avoiding taxes. And so the sales will not reflect on their books. They are not reflected on the credit card transactions or e-wallet transactions. So it's good, like this is good as cash, so we can hide the sales. Well, yes, technically yes, but we actually don't encourage that kind of messaging. We we avoid like positioning Paytaka and Bitcoin Cash as a way to avoid paying taxes by merchants. And although that's one advantage, but yeah, we're very careful about the messaging because while we don't want what the government is doing, like excessive tax or excessive exercise of control, we would like to be very careful about the way we frame our messaging, and we don't want to unnecessarily antagonize very early. Uh, Maybe at some point when there are like thousands or millions of users that can back us in term when time comes that like the government becomes very strict. But at the early stage, we don't want to unnecessarily like put ourselves as an antagonizer, as a catalyst of like antagonizing the government.
Yeah, absolutely. Jim, what about? I know you have a little bit of a maybe different situation than we've been talking about, or how is it for you? Like, what are the
Uh,
motivations?
yeah, it's kind of a bit of a mix where I am. So I think like with the younger generation, I'd say they're very very accepting of digital payments and the rest of it. Older generation here are really 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 pro cash. Cash is king, basically, is what you'll hear like everywhere here. Um, Yeah, but in terms of censorship, I don't think it's as severe as perhaps some other places. But people do get their accounts locked when they do try to, exchange cryptocurrency on an actual exchange. And I actually had my bank account locked at one point as well, but that was back in 2019. Not to do with cryptocurrency. That was because I just had like a transaction description. I owed my boss money at that point, and I thought it'd be funny to write like hookers in the description. So the payment went through, and then the very next day, my bank account got locked. Uh, so even back then, they were kind of keeping an eye on things, and uh, even though that description was a little bit cheeky, uh, it could probably be interpreted to be something like legitimate. It wasn't illegal or anything like that. Um, but yeah, it does happen here. But yeah, I still think like the older generation here are very much pro cash, whereas the younger generation, they're all digital payments. It's just way more normalized for them.
What about when it comes to Bitcoin Cash? For those who have started to use it, do they perceive it as cash or as
Um,
you know what I'm saying? Like you were saying, there's like digital money and then there's cash, which means like paper cash. Did the people who start to use it perceive it as cash, or do they perceive it as just another
no,
form of digital money?
just another form of digital money, and because we don't really have like the enough merchants here, it's probably more viewed as like an investment, I would say, which is kind of a shame because a lot of these people are trying to be privacy focused, but at the same time, it's just the appeal of investing in cryptocurrency, watching dollar amount go up. That's really probably the main appeal with most people here, unfortunately. Um, I could see that changing because I think people are starting to get more and more kind of frustrated with traditional banking and the invasion of privacy and the rest of it. But yeah, at the moment it is kind of a hard push. It really, uh, I guess it's probably difficult because the older generation really aren't technically all that savvy a lot of the time, so they don't really understand what they're actually using, how it works, and the rest of it. What they're looking at for the most part is, how much, if I open up my wallet, how much is this worth today? Not what can I spend it on, what can I use it on? Just how much is it worth? How much can I sell it for to get like Australian dollars or whatever?
Yeah. Is that really the dream? I guess. I mean, for some, it is. It is. That's definitely the. I don't know. I used to think this was so just terribly obvious that it didn't need saying, but it seems like if you look at people talking about Bitcoin on Twitter and other places, it seems like the message has been lost where the whole get in early and let the value go up. That whole concept was very clearly an incentive mechanism to incentivize adoption so that people start using it and using it in commerce. That was explicit and also just, I thought, obvious, but it seems like that has fallen off. So that was definitely part of or it is the dream, right? Like, just, yeah, sure, if you want to get rich, maybe you get lucky and you get rich, but that's just an incentive for people to start using it. That wasn't the point, right? Like, that's not, if that becomes the point, that's the tail wagging the dog, and there's not really anything to it anymore. But yeah, you name, how does that, how do all of us qualify on, have we achieved the dream?
Uh, I mean, there are two parts, right? So, in the case of BCH, I think there were a lot of ups and downs, to put it lightly, but we mostly stuck to it, and we are still fighting for it. And I would explain it a little bit, but I think a lot of us have learned some really important lessons, and are putting them to action. So that is awesome. But in the case of the entire space, cryptocurrency space, I would say we have regressed massively. The two things that has improved a lot are, at least for the industry as a whole, is liquidity. Uh, Markets are much deeper, and there's a lot more participants. There's like freaking endowments and Saudi princes and holy crap! And then there are governments and pension funds all joining on the fund. So the pool is way way deeper. Um, and if we are strictly talking about ways to buy cryptocurrency, there are also now a lot more ways, quote unquote ways. Um, in some places, even the banks are getting in on it. So in those two specific cases, I would say that things have quote unquote improved a lot, but in virtually everywhere else, things have regressed. Uh, and it is, I originally thought that the worst thing that could happen to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as a whole was that it would just become an ordinary investable. Imagine gold or uranium or platinum, except that it can't really be used as a metal for anything. Um, that's what I thought. Like that would be the worst. Um, turns out, um, turns out it got even worse. Uh, uh, and then instead of some metals and vegetables and stuff, that people would think of alongside other metals, uh, we did the at least the entire industry, of course. BCH again is a bit of an outlier, at least among the people that I know, but that's another thing. The entire industry somehow like mutated into this weird thing, and then people started chasing meme coins. Um, Not that meme coins are a generally bad thing. Like it has its uses. I think its biggest use is to uh, uh, well, I mean, I have to say the cynical thing. The biggest use for meme coins is for gamblers to sponsor development of otherwise useful things. Right. Um. But yeah. People have over time we got to a point where cryptocurrency has taken the place of basically Amway and sketchy ass gambling gambling schemes and pyramid schemes of the olden days, except that it's mostly legal in most places. um that's where we are, and it's kind of sad. So that's for the whole industry. I would like to think that we are doing quite a bit more differently in BCH, but we need to do a lot better to get ahead of the whole industry thinking in the other direction.
So okay, playing me the devil's advocate side of Amway, modern crypto Amway is the killer app. Fight that position.
Well, no, I don't mean this as a slight against Amway the business model or whatever. Like I'm not trying to comment on that. I'm just like in terms of what's going on in the public mind. Uh, it's crypto basically became like the olden days. Oh yeah, Amway, uh, chain mails. Uh, and other other sketchy things, and even and you tell people, oh yeah, Bitcoin, and then in their mind it's like, oh yeah, this is like one of those weird and sketchy things that your good for nothing uncle brings up once in a while. um and by this time, in most places in the world, unlike 10 years ago, in most places in the world, most people have heard about crypto, and they kind of have an established idea of what it is, and it's not good, and that really sucks. So
Is that the same for you guys? That is true for my experience also. Like in developer meetups and other places, the reputation is just really bad. The reputation is that it's a scam, just simply that it's a Ponzi or a scam, or now it's mutated into a huge number of Ponzi's and scams is the perception in general. It's a really nasty reputation. Is that the same for you guys or no?
Yeah, I would say so. Unfortunately, I agree that industry-wide, like crypto has regressed a lot. Um, Not only in terms of like public perception, like the perception of the public has been like poisoned by all this scamming, token sales, meme coins, and not only that, like the outsiders' perspective of what crypto is, but even the insiders, like we have many of us in the industry have been blinded by what glitters, like where the number go up is So they think that this is crypto. They think that like I really like one of my pet peeves when I attend like gatherings or conferences is when they talk about crypto adoption and then they're just actually just talking about meme coins and they're just talking about like centralized exchanges establishing new licenses in whatever territories and they call this crypto adoption and they liken this they liken this to like a fulfillment of a of dream of the industry and I don't really I don't subscribe to that concept and it really saddens me when I hear insiders like people in the industry chasing this kind of goal this kind of progress. So both from outside and from inside, the whole industry has like how should I say like we went off the track. Most of almost the whole of the industry went off the track, and that's why instead of looking at the whole industry, I'd rather like zoom in to Bitcoin Cash as like a microcosm, like a this is where the real revolution is happening. So I'd rather like see compare our progress uh, within Bitcoin Cash, like from years ago compared to now, and compared to what we can achieve in the near term, long term. So at least looking at that microcosm within the Bitcoin Cash community, I would say that we are making good progress. So yeah, we're on track. Where the rest of the industry is off track, we are on track.
I kind of agree with Jomar there. So that's always been the disappointing factor, because you could kind of see it devolve into that, right? It's not like it happened um, in a singular moment. You could kind of see the entire industry go towards that direction, and you know that okay, it's going downhill. You cannot really there's no stop for it. And that's one thing that I do like about the Bitcoin Cash space is that we're trying to stick in the original roots of what this entire space is meant to be. And yeah, I think pushing forward with this direction is definitely important. Yeah, from Indian space, it's the same thing. Like when the government comes out and says that we don't call it cryptocurrency, we call it crypto asset, it kind of hurts. It kind of hurts because you know that there is no way in hell you're going to get any kind of approval to build any kind of big business. When they openly say that they do not support cryptos to be used as a currency or as a payment method, they're open about it. You're allowed to trade, you're allowed to do the meme coins, you're allowed to do all of that shit, but no, you're not allowed to use it for payments, and we're gonna block that. And those are the exact kind of laws that got implemented in India, which also prevented us from introducing a lot of cool features that we were trying to build on. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could continue doing things underground, but you can't make it big. It always remains small when the sentiment of the government itself is like that, and when the people are not, when people do follow whatever the government says. In India, people are like big followers of government, right? Like they love what the government does, especially when their party is in power. They follow every single thing that's being said with a blindfold. So that's the kind of mentality that we have to work with. And it hurts the businesses like us, right? If you're trying to build something in the payment space, it completely destroys your argument because all the conferences that I attend, all the meetups that I attend, no one talks about Bitcoin or any crypto for that matter being used as payments. It's all about trading. It's all about investment. It's making money. That's about it. There's no space for the payment space.
Uh, Yeah, and in a sense, I mean, people have talked about this elsewhere on Twitter, but in a sense, the rise of meme coins are an indirect effect from crypto based from quote unquote legitimate crypto, uh, literally not being allowed to do anything else, right? So we can't raise we're not supposed to raise money, we're not supposed to advertise utility in anything other than some weird completely on-chain feedback loop thing. We are not allowed to do anything real world. Then, well, what can we do? How do some about some completely meaningless and pointless thing? And we put some JPEGs on the chain. Oh yeah, let's do that. And then that's how we got meme coins, and that's how it got so quote unquote big. Uh, there's uh, there's probably also a lot of money laundering involved, but let's not talk about that. Um, yeah. Apparently that's where the industry is, and the other.
Can I uh, can I explain one scam that I saw took place in the Indian
Okay,
space?
go for it.
So cricket is pretty big in India, right? So when there's things called IPL and the World Cups happen. This happened like maybe just before the FTX or something like that, around that time. So most of the advertisements that were being played during the match were all cryptocurrency exchanges, like centralized exchanges, right? So they had just all of them had raised enough funds, like in maybe a couple of $100 million, and they were able to run pretty huge ads, right? They were the biggest sponsors and things like that, to the point where they were able to capture majority of the crypto space in terms of the number of users. All the centralized exchanges, they pulled all the users into centralized exchanges, right? And then as soon as all of these things got over, they got the government to ban advertising on crypto. So no other players in the market could
But
do any more advertising anymore. So they got all the users, and then they literally banned the crypto advertising. That was the biggest scam that they were able to pull off. And now majority of the people are stuck in centralized exchanges. And after that, they just turned off the deposits and withdrawals of crypto. So now it's like, yeah, you're just stuck in the exchange. You can just
oh
deposit
shit,
and withdraw rupees. You can trade crypto, but you cannot use crypto anymore. So yeah, that's the
yeah,
scam that I saw happen. How do
yeah.
you how do you play with these big scammers? It's really hard. It's really hard to compete with this kind of scam.
Well, I mean the classic response to this, like, if you ask me like many years ago, I would say that yeah, but this is why it is important to tell people to keep most of their coins non-custodial, and as long as most people have their coins non-custodial, this will not happen. Like the exchanges cannot lock you in. But then after the years, like through the years, I got more and more cynical. I was like,
Yes, but how do you get the crypto in the first place, right? So that's been the
yeah,
main
yeah,
issue.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like, how do
exactly,
you
yeah,
get it when you cannot withdraw? There are P2P exchanges, which the same exchanges are advising you not to use and are colluding with the police to ban the bank accounts of everyone doing P2P trades,
yeah.
because they have like agents in place who are doing the trades as well. As soon as they
Yeah.
do a trade, they know your bank account because they've done a P2P transaction with you.
This, this, this,
They immediately, yeah.
See, this is where they get you, right? And then the classic response to bank accounts getting frozen is that, oh yeah, this is why everyone should use cash. But then you already got locked into UPI, so you cannot do that without you
Yes.
cannot do anything without the bank, or
Yep.
else you would literally not be able to go out and, I don't know, buy chewing gum or anything like that. Um, so you got into this predicament, and it becomes really hard to solve because everything is interlocked with each other, right? So
Exactly. Yeah. So, from when I look at the entire Indian crypto space right now, I'm honestly confused. I don't know where we are standing right now. I don't know which direction to go. I mean, we are still trying to push as much as possible, and we're trying to talk to some industry players and stuff to bring back the narrative. But uh, in the current scenario, at least, it's very confusing because I go to these big events, Ethereum Foundation and Filecoin. All of these guys run pretty large conferences in India, and they also work with regulators and things like that. So I go to them and I ask them simple question like, okay, you want people to use your chain, right? Like, how are people supposed to get your coins in the first place? Like, how are the developers supposed to get your coins in order to build products? Like, you're giving $1 million in grants to build projects on your chain, but how are they even supposed to get the coins in the first place? And then they just go blank. They don't have an answer. So
I
even
mean,
they themselves do not know the answer to that.
there are more sophisticated ways that are possible like in the future, but for the near term, I would say that the P2P ways of transactions need to step up in terms of disguising themselves, right? And a lot of times it's not even outright like, oh, I would outright pretend to be something else. It could be something in the gray market, like for example something like Bitgreen. I don't know. Would be an interesting way out, where people buy each other's stuff in order to get crypto or spend crypto. So that's one way to do things. And in terms of P2P exchange, those transactions probably should not be uh, reported outright as, oh yeah, I'm paying him for this amount of bitcoins, or Ethereum or whatever. They should there should probably be a way that is figured out that at least would not trip bank triggers for the meantime until they figure it out, right? Like, is there any efforts in this case?
You mean from the P2P side?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you mentioned that if you're involved in P2P, your bank account is
Mhm.
banned. I was like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, but it's P2P. You are literally like paying some random person, right? Like, is there no way to pay some random person while telling the bank some bogus excuse? Is there no such
So
thing?
no, so the issue is not from the bank. So the banks itself have no issue with you doing crypto, right? So the issue is actually not with banks, but rather frauds. Have you heard of this
Right,
scam or a fraud called as the triangulated scam that happens on
right.
P2P exchanges, where you basically create a sell order on P2P, right? But then on Facebook or on Instagram or something like that, you promise to sell another person a product,
Yes,
right? But then you
yes.
give the bank account of the crypto trader, and then you basically lock them both in a feud because the third party has sent funds to the crypto trader's bank account, right? And then you have got
Yeah.
your crypto, so the guy releases your crypto, but yeah, so the third party and the buyer of the crypto is actually stuck in a fraudulent case because it goes to like the cyber crime department, right? So they are the ones who issue the bank freeze. The banks itself don't do anything, but the crime branch, the crime department, asks the bank to freeze because there is a fraudulent case on that on that
Ba-
person.
ba- Basically, dealing with fiat is risky.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's the main issue that we have with P2P. The banks itself don't care. Like, we have openly spoken to bankers about getting bank accounts for crypto companies and things like that. They're totally open with it. They're totally open to providing bank accounts. They have no issue at all.
Right.
The main issue is the false fraudulent cases that get put on, which are happening in, yeah, for
Yeah.
thousands of.
Basically, people want to who want to take advantage of the and quote unquote anti-spam system in fiat bank accounts
Yes.
to screw the sellers.
Yeah. So the guy gets his crypto, then he escapes. So unless there is a way to track him, it's hard, right? Like, once he gets his crypto, it's actually hard to track him because
Uh,
he can give a fake name, he can use a fake account on Facebook or something like that. So he kind
I
of
mean,
gets away with it.
one extreme measure to deal with this is probably to just make the escrow period longer. Like,
Yes, yes,
if fraud claims can be submitted within 7 days, then you lock the escrow for 7 days, something like that, right?
Yeah, but from yeah, that works very well. That's one of the things that we have internally in Zapid discussed as well. How do we prevent that from happening on our exchanges? But unfortunately, according to Indian laws, you can kind of file a case even after a year. So it
Damn.
doesn't make sense. Like, how long will you really hold escrow? So some issues might be even regional issues when it comes to legal disputes. It could be country to country wise issues that might. So these are the issues that I face in India, but maybe others can.
Imagine this as a cryptocurrency. Like, your transactions are reversible after a year. That would be some super shit going, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Damn. Um. Yeah. So one thing I've always wondered is that, okay, like, India or Philippines or the U.S. or whatever country can lock down their stuff internally, right? But generally, the advantage of fiat gets weaker at the border, because the efforts to control money in one country, uh, does not necessarily apply to some other country, and B, a lot of times both of them are trying to control money, and that stacks up and makes the transaction like extra painful, right? Like, I don't know about the case in India or Philippines. Like, do people not encounter friction or trouble at the border when doing foreign exchange? Like, I've seen capital control efforts in a lot of unexpected places, because generally, when people talk about capital controls, they think about, oh yeah, China is doing it, or Russia is doing it, or yeah, the U.S. is nominally free, but there's a lot of weird shit going on, and they make other countries do it. But it has popped up in a lot of unexpected places, and I've heard a lot from people in, like, well, I mean, General Protocols also has to deal with its own thing from time to time, uh, in accounts. So, like, do you guys talk to people who have to do a lot of foreign trade? And do they encounter any problems that could be addressed dealing with the government?
I'm not sure about, I don't have first-hand experience of dealing with people who are having issues with like moving capital from one country to another,
Not just moving capital, but just
trading.
doing general import or export.
Yeah. I'm not sure about the restrictions there, but I'd like to make some like to note about the payments part because I see a lot of differences between India and the Philippines. In the Philippines, crypto payments are allowed. It's actually in the law, I believe it's in the Central Bank Act uh, in the Philippines that alternative currencies are allowed, not just the Philippine pesos, as long as the transacting parties agree to use such currency. So gold is allowed, silver, um, anything, any currency, crypto, Bitcoin Cash. So at least we have a guarantee, legal guarantee somehow that um, crypto payments are going to be. It's not even in a gray area. It's there. It's allowed by the law. And
Right.
also yes.
Joma, yeah. So since you said that everything is allowed, do you guys not have a concept of something like a legal tender? Is there no legal tender concept there? Or is there
Legal
anything legal tender?
legal tender is Philippine pesos, but you
Okay,
can,
but if okay,
but people can pay each other in any
Anything.
currency.
I think generally in most places the concept of legal tender means that if you owe people some money, it has to be payable in that country,
Yeah,
in that
yeah,
currency. It does not exclude you from paying in the other currencies. It just means that you have to accept this thing.
yeah. Especially in disputes,
Right.
if there are disputes in court, the legal tender law applies. But for normal transactions, like you're exchanging goods and services, you can accept crypto here. And there are recent regulations from the central bank regarding virtual asset service providers and the requirement to have KYC and travel rule, etc. But then their definition of money service businesses is restricted or like narrowed down to companies that have custody of funds. So since Paytaka does not have custody of funds, we don't belong to that category.
That is awesome.
So yeah, so we are exempt from like the requirements, KYC requirements, travel rules. I don't know for how long that will be. So we are like we need to do a lot, take advantage of this time that there are no new regulations that could probably be more strict in the future.
Do you guys think you will get to the point that your government says, look, every financial transaction that happens digitally needs to be, submitted, needs to be transparent to the government, that it has happened and what was involved and who the parties were involved. Do you think you'll get to that point? Is
That's
it going
already
in that
there, right?
direction? It's for UPI.
No, for
Yeah.
Philippines, no. In India, yeah.
Yeah, in India we do. Yeah, so every transaction has to be reported because every transaction is taxed. So we have something called a TDS, which is tax deducted at source. So every time you buy, sorry, not buy, but when you sell your crypto, you have to pay a 1% tax. Now the tax is actually refundable, which means you if you can prove that yes you made those transactions and you're paid a tax for it at the end of the year when you're actually filing for taxes, they give it back to you, but you still have to pay it. So this affects
But
traders mostly because every time they're selling, they have to pay a tax.
oh
But it
wow.
kind of applies on payments as well because I've tried to kind of get around this, but if you're trying to purchase something with crypto, it's also considered that you're selling your crypto for that product, right? So
Oh,
the
okay.
TDS kind of does apply there. So you
But
have to
what
pay on.
about the identification part? Is it the case that you have to identify, both parties have to be identified? This was the buyer and the seller, the
Yeah, so
sender,
when you're
receiver, that
actually
kind of thing.
paying the TDS, you need to get the tax number from the person who's purchasing it, and it is filed on their behalf.
Oh,
So
wow.
the buyer actually has to
Oh
file it on their
man.
behalf. So that's why P2P is very hard because you technically have to do that entire compliance part when you're doing P2P. But the exchanges make it easy because they file it on your behalf. You get it? Like you just have to get it back in the end, um, from your
So,
accountant. But the exchanges can file it on your behalf
I
because they know the information of the seller and the buyer.
can,
So when you go to the groceries, you have to be like, "Hey," to the register guy, like, "What's your tax number? Like, what's the
Yeah, so those
registration
are
number?"
the
Oh my god.
difficulties that we've been having from payments. But with regards to what Jomar said, it's the same thing in India as well. You can technically use crypto. Like I pay a lot of my contractors in crypto, so that's still allowed. You can kind of purchase land with gold and things like that. Even though rupee is the legal tender, you can use other things for payments as long as the parties agree to it. But there are rules and regulations, like for example the TDS. And then there's also another rule which says it's the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, which is that the person who's actually selling the crypto, only that person can actually get the rupee back. So the person who's selling the crypto, the rupees can only go to that person's account, not to anybody else's account, which kind of prevents payment gateways because in payment gateways one person sells the crypto and the other, like a merchant, gets the rupees, right? You
Mm.
can't do that because it goes against the act.
What about
okay,
foreign
yeah.
gateways? Like if you house all your infrastructure foreignly, wait, does UPI even pay to foreign people?
UPI pay to foreign people. I didn't get the question.
Like if someone from say the U.S. or Singapore,
Hmm.
uh, they have a business in say Singapore.
Hmm.
Can they accept like UPI payment to them and then
They
receive
need to
things
have an
from
Indian bank account. They need to have a Indian registered, like even if it's like a subsidiary company, or even if you have a bank account, you can still get through a payment gateway. You can accept UPI. There's a lot of businesses, international business that do accept UPI payments, payment gateways. But actually, your original question about imports and exports. Yes, I actually have dealt with a lot of people who wanted to use crypto for exports and imports, right? So yes, there are
right?
difficulties at the customs because when you actually go to pick up the item from the customs, they require a certain number of things like bill of lading and things like that. In one of the requirement is a bank transaction number. So it has to be the payment for the good has to be a bank transfer. They don't yet accept cryptocurrency payments because that is not written into the law book yet. If it is, then they'll probably accept that. But until that happens, they will not release the good from the customs if there is no bank account proof for that item.
Yeah,
That issue that exists.
this is kind of interesting. I wonder if there's some sort of background, like okay, we would do the transaction, but but I would agree to pay you like for the entire container of stuff for only $5 or 5 rupee or whatever, and then we do the rest outside in another channel, crypto or whatever. I wonder if anyone has tried that. They probably did, but that would be called again, called money laundering. So
Can I ask a quick question? So in India, do you still have cash, and do people still use cash, or is it all basically digital now?
It's almost non-existent, I would say. Almost everyone has a phone these days. Everyone has a smartphone. Everyone has internet connection. Internet is super cheap. Like you get internet for like less than $1. So UPI, like everyone has a bank account. India used to be one of the largest countries were unbanked. I am so surprised that there's almost more than 90% coverage that people have bank accounts in the last couple of years, in the last maybe decade, right? The new schemes that the government have come up, everyone has got a bank. I rarely find anybody that does not have a bank account anymore. And almost nobody uses cash. Maybe there's like 1 or 2% that use cash. Majorly, since UPI is meant for small amount transactions, everyone is just using UPI. Like you will literally find street vendors with QR codes. Even the beggars have QR codes now. Like you go to a signal and you stand there, the beggar is coming to beg for cash. You say no cash, he pulls out a QR code, which is actually so funny. But yeah, everyone has QR code. So no cash. No. That's
Thank you.
actually
Yeah,
become a difficulty because sometimes some people might ask for cash, and I have no way to get cash. I have to go to ATM. A lot of times ATMs don't dispense cash, so it's like, oh shit, I'm stuck without cash now. And not having a
and
cash is a difficult.
if I remember
ATM
correctly, like
doesn't dispense
you
cash.
guys just abolish all the higher denominations, right? So
Yes,
even for like,
that as
smaller
well.
amounts, you have to get a huge stack of cash.
The highest denomination I think is $5 now. Yeah, around that.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So the highest was about $15 before that, but even that they got rid of. So right now it's less than $5. I mean, it's not needed. That's how they've made the system. It's unfortunate in one way, fortunate in other ways because you did have a lot of issues with cash. But then, another set of issues come up with just digital payments as well. But I'm glad that we are building tools so that we have electronic cash. But no, things are changing at a rapid pace.
Absolute worst case, the sci-fi potential of Bitcoin and crypto created a need for the legacy banking to catch up and do something better. That's absolute worst case accomplishment of, of Bitcoin, maybe. All right, you name. What's your conclusion? Are we getting what we dreamt of? I'm not feeling it.
I would say for the most part I would say we didn't quite get it, but it's alive. The dream is alive, but we didn't quite get it, but it's alive.
It's
At
alive.
least at least here. Not sure about elsewhere, but at
It's
least here.
definitely alive in BCH and Bitcoin Cash, and a few other places I think too. Yeah, for sure. All right.
We'll see.
So, I know everybody's been here a long time. Uh, I was hoping to ask one more question before we wrap up, maybe. Um, so I always tell this story, and so sorry if you've heard this before, but it's the story of Linux on the desktop, where um, Linux is an operating system, right? It's all open source and it's available, and anybody can make it and use it and so forth. It's a kind of alternative to closed systems where the company owns all the software and you can't see it and you can't do anything with it and you can't touch it. And so there's this long time dream since the, I don't know, 90s of like open source software becoming the thing that replaces Microsoft and DOS and Windows, and you know let the operating system be free, and it's available to everybody, and you don't have to be locked in and blah blah blah. Then that went absolutely nowhere for decades. Just nobody picked that up. It didn't fly at all. But then where Linux did succeed, where this open source operating system did succeed, was in the emerging market of the internet, in the server. And so the killer app was something that the people who were really promoting it didn't really predict. And it took off in a very different place than they expected it to take off. Like instead of on the desktop, it took off like in this hidden, dark back rooms that the average person is completely unaware of, has no idea exists. And that was the server when the server emerged. And adoption took off there. And then eventually that happened to wrap around to Android and other operating systems, which now everyone in the world uses, and they still don't know they're using Linux and open source stuff, right? They still don't realize that they're using it, but they are. So that story is always a I don't know. It's a thought experiment for me that maybe we don't have our eye on the right place, or maybe the adoption that achieves this freedom and censorship resistance and so forth for a lot of people will come in a roundabout way that we don't really see. So my question is, do you guys see any of these roundabout ways where you start in one place and you don't go straight for what you're wanting, your goal, and you kind of go in a circle, but you end up at the goal through some other path? Do you guys see that anywhere? Ramit, do you see that happening anywhere, or do you see a path for that? Not that it has to happen, but do you see that as something that's happening or that might happen?
Um, you know, as much as the entire discussion would have turned out negative because we're not achieving what we originally wanted things to be. I would say I'm kind of living the life that I wanted to live in terms of the finances, right? I wanted to use cryptocurrency in my day-to-day life, and I'm managing to do that. Yes, I have to jump through a couple of hoops here and there, but I'm able to do that because partly because of the tools that we have built, all of us in the space, that's enabling us even in a small manner. But it works, as long as it works, it's going to change one individual person's life at a time. It's going to be slow, but I think it's going to happen eventually.
That's a
So
really
I would
powerful message. I should also say the same, that I'm also living that way, right? I earn
yeah,
all of my income is in Bitcoin Cash, is
yeah,
only in Bitcoin Cash, right? So where some people are like, I need to get Bitcoin Cash, I'm like, I need to get local fiat sometimes. And it's
yeah.
kind of hard to get
I've
local
never
fiat
bought
sometimes,
Bitcoin Cash because I've always earned Bitcoin Cash. I've never
right?
purchased any Bitcoin Cash because I've always earned Bitcoin Cash. And I mean, I try to spend Bitcoin Cash in most of the places, but some merchants don't accept Bitcoin Cash. We are trying our best to even get them to start accepting it, um, but one conversion or one conversion away to be able to use it anyway. Because of the other tools that exist in the space. But you can do that. You can hold your entire wealth in Bitcoin Cash in a non-custodial wallet. You can spend it whenever you like, wherever you like. With all the tools that exist, all the stabilization tools that exist, all the exchange tools that exist, all the payment tools that is being built and that exist. So I think it's all about the mindset. If we can just work on getting a lot of people to understand that. And I keep saying this, adding incentives to actually get people to switch to using crypto is one of them. If you cannot get the mindset to change, incentives will, right? So building a lot of incentives kind of get people to start using it as well. And I think, yeah, just going in on that direction, just keep walking that path. And I think eventually most of the people will end up following you. So yeah, I would say,
Nice.
to be honest.
It's just needs more time. Like you said, you saw from the beginning that it's going to take a long time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's just going to take a long time. That's
It's
it.
still in the same timeline. I'm,
It's
I'm
still a
not
thing
glad, but yeah,
timeline.
it's still in the same time.
Nice.
20
So
to
you
30
think it
years.
is progressing just fine. It's just that it's going to take
Yeah,
time. That's all.
yeah, because it's an adversarial concept. Right? Like
Yeah,
the entire thing is
absolutely.
adversarial to the powers that be. So it's not going to be easy. I mean, none of us thought that it's going to be easy. None of us thought that we are not going to have to put up a fight. We have to. So I think, yeah, but eventually the, the truth prevails. So we will. As you said, the
Nice.
Linux story works. I think that applies to Bitcoin Cash the most. Everything being open source and being freedom minded. I think people will just gravitate to that. Every other project that comes in and out, as much as it uh, it I don't know. I mean, it brings a bad taste in the mouth. It's short lived. We have seen that, right? Like we have seen so many coins that come in and out of existence, but then they just go out, right? I think BCH is the classic case for that because it keeps falling down, maybe the 20th or 30th spot in the market cap, but then it just keeps coming back up again. Yeah, I think that's one story that you can kind of see happening. But eventually, I think it'll outlast and outlive most of the other projects out there. That's more important.
Last man standing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. That's fantastic. Jomar, you have a similar take, different take? Do you see a different path, or it's just going to be a long road?
I like that story about Linux. I don't think I have heard that before. Um, and this has a lot of I see a lot of parallels with Bitcoin Cash. And just a few days ago, actually, I was wondering about the same. I was things were playing in my mind, like what could be like unexpected paths that BCH could take. Like, of course, we have all been working towards adoption in payments, like in brick and mortar shops, in online stores, etc. But one of the things that I thought about was the this emergence of AI agents. One I attended one conference a few months back, and I was surprised that many people are talking about AI agents, and they were making training their own AI agent, and I felt left out. So after that conference, I really studied deeply into this, and I realized too, like um, there are two evolutionary paths of AI agents, like monolithic AI agents, like agents that can do a lot of things. And then there are smaller, like multi-agent systems, but maybe we can introduce like division of labor, like specialized AI agents that are very good at one thing, and then they interact with other AI agents who are also specialized, but they pay each other. Like we create a market between these AI agents. And then, of course, if you have like a market, the AI agents are like trading skills between each other. We will need a medium of exchange, and that probably is something that BCH will be best for. Um, After all, we are like BCH is most suitable as a payment cryptocurrency. So
And especially a payment cryptocurrency, a payment method for AIs that are not recognized as humans and don't fall into the patterns that are required by most legacy systems, right? That's a really key
right, right, and this goes
point.
back
Yeah.
to the first thing that excited me about Bitcoin. It's permissionless. So this is just imagine if you want to develop like AI agents and they pay each other, and then you need to ask permission from the bank to use a currency for these systems. No, we don't need that. We can use Bitcoin Cash for this. We can. I, it's not fully formed yet. Like this, there are like I don't have the full idea yet, but I think this is something that can be explored. That we need to explore the interface between AI and blockchain.
I
I
totally
think
agree.
yeah, I think there's something there that where Bitcoin Cash will shine.
And I really want to double down here, because if anybody happened to like cut in at just this moment and they heard the interface of AI and cryptocurrency, they would just roll their eyes and be like, "Oh my God, this is
Wait,
nonsense!" Right?
I thought that would generally mean that BCH would pump like 300%. That's not
Right, right, right,
anymore.
right. No, that means music.
Is
No,
that is that a 2024 kind of thing?
no, hold on. No, so I want to just double down that no, this is like a really real thing. And of course, there's skepticism about AIs, but anybody who can look at the progress of AI technologies, just you cannot ignore that unless you just totally
Mhm.
put your head in the sand. There's a trajectory there that's like going up at a fast rate, the capabilities. And at some point, it becomes feasible to imagine that you have an AI agent or a host of agents that are potentially self-sustaining. They can just
Mhm.
exist by themselves and do things by themselves. Maybe not at a human level or whatever, it doesn't matter. But to some degree persist by themselves. But to do that, they need hosting, they need compute resources, they need GPUs and CPUs and memory, and they need, bandwidth, and that's like their fundamentals. If they don't have that, they cease to exist. And an AI that has this is where you get into evolution, right? Like, okay, well, the ones who don't manage to choose a money system or hosting that works for them, will they just cease to exist? And the ones that do, well, they might continue to exist, right? And so, yeah, if you choose a very poor payment system that requires you to KYC and you fail KYC, and then you cease to exist. But if you figure out a way to live on a permissionless, using permissionless money for payments, then you potentially have a way to continue to exist. So yeah, I completely agree about this, and it's not just a techno babble marketing, you keywords or whatever. It's a real thing that I think will happen. That interface is actually an interesting point.
Mhm.
Jim, how about you? To wrap up, like, you think it's just a long road, or do you think there's another way that we got to go, like an end run, that we got to go around in a little half circle, or what do you see on
Um,
the way forward?
I kind of think there's probably a few different avenues. So, like, ultimately, I think Bitcoin itself was kind of birthed out of the global financial crises, and it could be that we have another crisis which kind of drives people towards Bitcoin Cash. It could be something to do with invasions of privacy or censorship or something like that. On the other hand, though, there's other things like dApps, betting applications. The fact that it's cheaper than every other chain. Another one might even just be denial of service protection, kind of what you're saying with computing resources and that kind of thing. They all cost money, and it might be that we can use Bitcoin Cash as a way to kind of authenticate and pay for services online, right? Might be AI, it might be other stuff as well. But essentially, it's a good means of payment, and it's cheap, and we might find a market in something like that too. But yeah, I don't know. There could be a few different angles. I think it's going to be a long grind, but at the same time, something might happen politically that does drive Bitcoin Cash adoption as well. So I'm really not sure.
The US dollar was widely expected to be like the final boss that needs to be defeated in fiat, right? And it's currently, well, the US dollar is currently dismantling itself, so that's one of the big obstacles gone.
I guess this falls into the category of luck, right? You have to make your own luck. You prepare, you work hard, and then you do happen to get lucky at some point. But you wouldn't be able to take advantage of it if you hadn't put in all the hard work along the way. So yeah, BCH is well prepared in that aspect, right? It's actually putting in the hard work, just waiting for the right opportunity. Okay, let's wrap up. Yeah, that's actually been quite a long discussion. I appreciate you guys joining. Did anyone have any final comments before we wrap up? All right. So we keep going. It's a long road. We put in the work, make sure things are working, make sure things are available, make sure things are useful, find people to use it, help people, and along the way we'll probably have a lucky break at some points that make it available to more people and make it more attractive to more people, and we actually achieve those goals we had. And in the meantime, those of us who are already living the dream can just show that we are actually there and you can get there. So yeah, I appreciate that, Ramit. That was a very good point to add there. All right, let's close up. Thank you, everybody. It was really good to talk with you. Thank you for taking time to join us, and I hope this will be useful for someone out there. Take care, everybody.
All
Bye.
right, thank you.